Okay, cool. Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Most of you don't know me. My name is Ahreum, and Ahreum Kim, and those are my parents over there in the back. You've probably seen them around. I think my dad preached here a few weeks ago. I am a New Testament Bible scholar from Cambridge, England. I grew up in Connecticut mostly. But I've lived in England the past 6 years, so I have a mixed accent. You'll hear my accent come out in weird ways. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to speak to you today. So this is the passage I'd like us to think about a bit. It's from Luke 22. It's also in Matthew and Mark. But I like Luke's version. Luke's probably my favorite gospel, even though I'm actually a Johannine scholar, so I study the books of John. There's 5 books of John. Considered Johannine literature. That's the Gospel of John, the 3 letters of John, and then the book of Revelation. I studied the letters of John for my PhD, but I wanted us to look at this sort of pivotal moment from Luke's Gospel, because this was sort of a key passage that got me to where I am standing in front of you right now. So, I'll read it for us, Luke 22, 39 through 46, and I chose the NRSV because that's kind of close to the Greek, which is the original language of the New Testament. So this is, we just had Easter, but this is sort of the terrible moment before all of this that happened, and I'll explain why this was such a big deal for me, this passage. So Jesus came out and went, as was his custom, to the Mount of Olives. In Matthew and Mark, it's called Gethsemane. But Luke likes to point to Mount of Olives, I think, because this is where Jesus liked to pray a lot. And the disciples followed him. And when he reached the place, he said to them, "Pray, that you may not come into the time of trial." Then he withdrew from them about a stone's throw, knelt down and prayed, "Father, if you are willing, remove this cup from me. Yet not my will, but yours be done." Then an angel from heaven appeared to him and gave him strength. In his anguish he prayed more earnestly, and his sweat became like great drops of blood falling down on the ground. And when he got up from prayer, he came to the disciples and found them sleeping because of grief. And he said to them, "Why are you sleeping? Get up and pray, that you may not come into the time of trial." So one thing I want to point out is that Jesus is in deep anguish. This is like one of the worst moments of his life up until this point, before he gets crucified. And he's praying really earnestly, and he's basically like, "God, I don't want to do this. I don't want to go to the cross." And he's sweating so much, they're like drops of blood. So it's this terrible, terrible moment in Jesus' life. So, this is sort of like a testimony, actually, a bit of a testimony. So as I mentioned, I'm a pastor's kid, and this is a little bit of background on me. So this is me at 13, graduating from middle school, and even though I grew up as a pastor's kid, I was pretty depressed, and I was not a Christian at this point in this photo. So I personally accepted Jesus when I was 14. And it was just by myself. I was really depressed. I was bullied a lot. From the time I was 5 years old, I was bullied pretty much every day. It got so bad that I couldn't even take the school bus anymore. I had to be driven to school because I was bullied so much for being Asian, and they would be like, "Chinese," and like sort of harass me. That's the kind of life that I grew up in the school that I was in. So in my sort of depressed and lonely state as a kid, I was like, you know what, if there's no God, I don't really see the point. So I started just praying and said, okay, I'm going to try this whole God thing, following God, see if it works, see if it goes, if my life gets any better, because I don't think it can be that much worse than how I feel right now. So I was like, okay, I don't really have a lot of friends, but I would like God to be my friend. I'd like to sort of follow him, get to know him. And I figured the best way to do that is to read the Bible. So I started to read the Bible a lot, and if I wasn't sure about something, I was like, I don't understand why this is happening in the Bible, I don't understand this in the Bible. I would try to research it as much as I could, and I would pray about it to God, and sometimes I felt like God would give me an answer about it. And so I developed this habit. By the time I was 16, I had this habit of just looking things things up in the Bible. In the back of the Bible, there was this index. So if I wanted to learn about wisdom or love, I would look up wisdom in the back, and it would say, oh, if you want to learn about wisdom, you can look at this verse, this verse, this verse. And I would look at it and felt like I started to understand wisdom a bit better. But even at 16, I had this terrible feeling. I was like, oh no, I think I might be called to do this thing sort of full time. And I was very resistant to that idea. And I was like, all right, maybe the best I could hope for, the best I could sort of accept was, maybe I'll be a pastor's wife. That's what I thought. I don't want to be a pastor, because that seems like really difficult and burdensome, and I see what my dad goes through. Yeah, I don't want that. Maybe I can be a pastor's wife, maybe. Never even knew Bible scholar was a thing. It wasn't even on my radar. But I was like, yeah, okay, maybe the best I could accept was becoming a pastor's wife. I went to Yale University for my undergrad. I studied really hard, but I went in undeclared, which I definitely don't recommend. I had no idea what I wanted to study. If you're like me and you don't know what you want to study and you want to go to a university, you might want to look into sociology or anthropology. And I studied anthropology. I didn't even know what anthropology meant when I was 17 and applying to schools. But I went into Yale undeclared. I got lucky. Normally they hate that sort of thing, but I got lucky. They let me in. And the reason I chose anthropology was because when I looked at all the classes for all the 200 plus majors, anthropology was the only class that I was kind of interested in taking, like 80% of the classes. So I was like, okay, I'll try this anthropology thing. And later, when I actually learned Greek, because to study New Testament you need to learn Greek, the original language, I was like, oh, anthropology is actually Greek. It means study of humans. And so, yeah, if you're really unsure and you want something to think about for study, you might want to consider sociology or anthropology. I was interested in it because it was about society and culture and the way it affects people, and it came in really handy in studying the Bible, just learning about the different culture and the people. And then, after studying anthropology, I started to get that feeling again, and I was like, oh no, I think God's maybe pulling me into ministry or something. Maybe he wants to be a pastor or something. I don't like that idea. I was like, okay. With the help of a female pastor who helped me get over all my fears and issues and concerns and worries about it, I started to look into schools and consider going to seminary, and I finally gave in. And I did visit some schools in America, but I happened to be in Korea, and I heard of this seminary called Torch Trinity Graduate University. It's in Seoul, and I had a few friends who went there. And I went to the open house event, and there was this professor there called Steve Chang. He was originally from Chicago, and well, he was in Chicago, he was in Maryland as well. And I was like, yeah, I'm not sure about this thing, but Steve Chang said to everybody, your job at seminary is to love Jesus more, and if you aren't doing that, you're not doing your job. And I was like, okay, yeah, this is where I want to be. I think I like this guy. I think this is the right place. And I ended up doing a master's there. And actually, Steve Chang ended up being a huge mentor for me, and he's still a mentor for me today. And then this terrible, terrible thing happened. In my third year of seminary, right before my third year, my parents sat me down in a really serious way, and they were like, we need to talk to you about something. We have something really serious to talk to you about. And I was really scared. I was like, oh no, like, did something happen? Is one of them sick? What's wrong? And they're like, we've been praying about this, and we really feel like God wants you to get a PhD in the Bible, like biblical studies. And I was like, yeah, do a Bible PhD? Absolutely not, no way, I'm definitely not doing that. And I literally said, if Jesus wants me to do that, he's gonna have to come down on a cloud and tell me himself that he wants me to go do a PhD, because I don't want, no, like, that's so much work. It's multiple years of more study. I have to do Greek, I have to do more more Hebrew. No thank you. Doing a master's degree was enough. Even that, I was not happy about doing that. I was like, no. And then I was going to finish seminary and be like, okay, maybe I'll just be like an assistant pastor or something at a church. I didn't want to be like a head pastor or anything like that. I was like, no more school. I'm done. And so I went back to Korea for my final year of seminary. And, I didn't really think much about it. I didn't tell anybody what my parents said. And then, that semester, 6 different professors came up to me, and they were like, we think you should do a PhD in the Bible. And I was like, oh no. And by the time the 3rd professor came up to me, I was like, I think maybe this is Jesus coming down in a cloud and telling me you need to go do a PhD. And quite frankly, I was scared. I didn't have the guts to disobey God, but I felt like this little girl. I felt like I was sitting on a step, and I didn't have the guts to disobey and not do anything, but I also didn't want to go forward and step into this thing that God seemed to want me to do. And he had sent my parents and 6 professors to tell me to do it, and I was really upset. And I was like, no, don't want to do this, don't want to do this. And I know, I sound like a big baby, and I was a big baby. And I was like, please God, don't make me do this. And in that moment, I saw this painting, this famous painting of, it's called Christ in Gethsemane by this 19th century German painter. And it's of that scene that we just read in Luke, of Christ basically begging God not to do this thing. And even though in that moment when I was praying, I saw this German painting, it was probably more like this random other black and white painting that is here, where Jesus was, sort of desperately sweating and being like, God, please don't make me do this. Father, please don't make me be crucified. I really don't want that. That's so much pain. That's so much difficulty. Please don't force me to do this. And it was this really intense, terrible moment of Jesus' worst moment of his life up until that point. Because he wasn't excited about all the pain and suffering he was going to experience, but Jesus saw the bigger picture. He was really scared, he was hesitant, but he was like, all right, God, I'll do this. And oddly, even that image of Jesus in Gethsemane, it actually gave me a lot of comfort, oddly, even though it was like the worst moment of Jesus' life up until that point. It gave me a lot of comfort because I was like, okay, Jesus wasn't excited about the road that he had, that God wanted him to do, but Jesus was like, I'm willing to do it. And so I also didn't feel like going to do a PhD, but God was sort of pushing me in that direction, and I was like, well, if even Jesus wasn't excited about something, I don't have to be excited about doing a PhD, but maybe I can still go down the road, and I don't have to be happy about it, but I can go down the road. But I still thought, why, God? Why do you want me to do a PhD? Why do I have to be the one to do it? And what was crazy was, it felt like almost audibly I could hear. It was one of the 2 moments in my life where I felt like I could almost actually hear God's voice talking to me. And he said, I built you to walk down this path. You're perfectly equipped for it, and you will never feel more satisfied with your life than if you do what I'm calling you to do. So that was really shocking to me, because I was like, oh wow, he actually built me to do this thing, and he's telling me that I'm going to be really satisfied with my life if I go and do that thing. And I needed to remember, I had sort of forgotten. I was like, oh yeah, God really loves me, and he made me, and he wants what's best for me, like a good parent, a really good parent always wants what's best for their kid. And so I had sort of forgotten that, and I was like, all right, if God is really the best creator, and he made me and equipped me with all these gifts and talents, whatever those are, and he wants me to go down this path, he's not doing it because he hates me, he's doing it because he wants me to be really satisfied with my life, to be really happy. So maybe this path, even though it seems scary to me, maybe I'll actually be happy if I go down it. So I finally gave in. I finally accepted the idea of maybe getting a PhD, and I started praying more about it. I'm like, okay, fine, God, I'll do this PhD thing, but where do you want me to go? And for some reason, I kept feeling like I needed to go to England. I've never been to England. I don't know anybody in England. I didn't have any friends who went to England, but for some reason, every time I was praying, I just kept hearing England, England, England. And because I'm a baby and because I was scared, I was like, okay, I'm going to be obedient to God, but I'm just going to apply to 2 schools, that's it. And the 2 schools I'm going to apply to are the best. I'm only going to apply to Oxford and Cambridge, and that's it. And I'm sure I'm not going to get in, and if God really wants me to go, then he'll open the door and I'll somehow get the money and I'll somehow be able to go if God really wants it. So it was almost like I was testing God. And I did get into Cambridge. This is beautiful Cambridge here, and it is a beautiful place. I did get into Cambridge. It was, in my mind, it was a miracle. And because I'm a baby, I complained about going to a beautiful place. You can see the smile on my face. This was the first week that I was in Cambridge about 6 years ago, and I was terrified. I was really terrified. I was scared. I was really intimidated. And it was actually worse than I thought it was going to be. Much worse. It was really difficult because not only academically difficult, but I experienced all kinds of prejudice yet again. So I've been bullied about being Asian since I was 5 years old, and it happened again when I was in Cambridge. I was the only woman in the room most of the time. In New Testament, it's 90% male, and it's 90% white male. And so I was the only minority in the room most of the time. I was the only woman in the room most of the time. So it'd be like me and 30 dudes, and they're all like 6 feet tall. And so they were literally looking down on me. People didn't like me because I was Asian. People didn't like me because I was a woman. People didn't like me, surprisingly, because I was American. They were like, oh, Americans, they're so loud and annoying. You pick Trump as your president. I got so much political hate. And then on top of that, the worst thing was I had to do my PhD during COVID. And so it was really lonely and really difficult, and I was just stuck in a room doing scholarly work. But some amazing things that I never thought possible also came out of this road that God wanted me to walk down. So that's kind of the point of what I wanted to talk about today. The reason Jesus said yes, even though he was like, this thing is terrible, God, I can't believe you want to make me walk down it. He did it because he saw, Hebrews 12 says he did it for the joy set before him. So Jesus saw the big picture of why he needed to do the thing that he needed to do. And I did not see the big picture. I had no idea what God wanted for me. That first book there, Richard Bauckham, he's a 78-year-old British scholar right now in New Testament. That was the book that I studied. I studied his book when I was in Korea doing my master's. And what I didn't know was that Richard Bauckham, he retired and now lives in Cambridge. And I got the chance to have a Bible study with this amazing scholar. And I actually have an interview with him next week to have a job assisting him in some research. And so there's all these crazy opportunities I never even thought about or even thought possible. That book in the middle is actually my book. Never ever even once thought about having a book with my name on it. But that was the title, The Countercultural Victory of One John in Greco-Roman Context. That's what I studied for my PhD, and it ended up getting published in this really sort of famous Library of New Testament series at T&T Clark. And then, to top it off, this was beyond crazy for me. Morna Hooker, she's one of the first female Bible scholars ever, on this planet. She's a British scholar. She's still alive. She's 94 years old this year. But I got a chance to work on a collection of essays. and they put my name on her book as editing it, and they gave me a percentage of the profits from this book as well. So it was just crazy just to even like be her assistant, but then it was even better than I even hoped for, just to have a book with her name and my name on the cover at the same time. I was like, oh, I've already peaked in my career. I can't get any better than this. Like, this is just insane. And so, yeah, just all these crazy things happened to me. And the other thing that I didn't think was possible, never even thought about, was that I would have these amazing friendships. You know, like I said, I was really lonely and didn't have a lot of friends growing up. And, you know, I was in this place where, as you can see in that first picture, these are just some of the, there's like about 15 PhD students at Cambridge in New Testament, and they're all white dudes except for me. And but I got a chance to travel. Some of them were really nice. These are some of the really nice ones, and they have turned into such great friendships. We went to Germany together. We've been in England together. We went to America. We went to San Diego for a conference recently. And then the other woman who happens to be up there is the wife of one of the scholars. And so, yeah, I got to be friends with the wives too, which was nice. But yeah, my point is, you know, God shows up in these incredible ways that I didn't even expect just by saying yes to this road. And they've impacted my life, I've impacted their lives. And so I'm so blessed to have all these friendships. So the point that I'm trying to make here is, yeah, it's absolutely terrifying. I'm still scared. I'm in this transition process. I'm here in Texas for a few weeks. I'm going to hear back from some research fellowships, some jobs in England and Germany. I'm going to hear back from them in the next few weeks. Don't know what's going to happen, but I'm not that stubborn little girl anymore who feels stuck, who doesn't want to go forward. I feel like now at this point I'm sort of walking with Jesus as opposed to being terrified, being nervous. I'm still scared a bit about the road ahead. I know that there's challenges ahead, but I know that Jesus gets it, that he's excited about it, and so I'm just going to keep walking with Jesus. And I encourage you to do the same about your own future. When it's hard, you can know that Jesus gets it. And if you stay open to how God is using your gifts and talents to bless people, if you don't know what your gifts and talents are, you can ask your friends, your family. I'm sure they can tell you, even if you feel insecure and you're not sure yourself. And you can open yourself up to even greater blessings and satisfaction with your life because of the great relationships you're going to have, all the amazing opportunities that you're going to have that are coming your way, because Jesus has way greater plans. If you just are willing, and if you're willing to trust him a little bit, you know, maybe dedicate your life a little bit more to him, even if you're scared and nervous. So, yeah, so I just want to encourage you in that way, because, yeah, even Jesus himself, you know, we think of Jesus as this really perfect guy, but even he was like, no, I don't want this, no, this is really hard, but he sort of trusted God and went for it. And so, if you're not sure, when you're facing challenges as well, yeah, I encourage you to just, yeah, have that sense of like, oh yeah, Jesus gets it. Jesus knows how hard it is, and I'm going to do my best to try to do what God wants me to do, because, yeah, he absolutely loves you, and he really wants you to be blessed and satisfied with your life. So that's all I wanted to share today. So, yeah, can I just pray for you guys a little bit? Yeah, dear Lord, yeah, I just thank you for everyone in this place. I think it's really hard to follow you sometimes. Some of us might not even feel like we're Christian, like we don't even really know who Jesus is. But God, I pray that whatever worries or concerns we might have, that you'll begin to speak to all of us. Help us to know that you get it, that you know how hard it can be sometimes. And that you do love us, and that you do have a path for us, that you want the absolute best for us, like a great parent, like a great mentor. that we can look to you for whatever it is that we want to do, all the things we're passionate about, all the gifts that you've placed in us. For those of us who don't know what our gifts and talents are, I pray that you start to make them known, that really good people, teachers, friends, family will start to point them out and be like, hey, you're really good at that. Hey, you seem to be passionate about that. That you'll really start to reveal that in all of us and give us the courage and the trust to be able to see that you're trustworthy and that we can walk with you, that you've got us, that you're holding our hand and taking us down great paths that will bless us and that will have even greater opportunities, even greater relationships, greater friendships than we ever thought possible. So we thank you for your love. Thank you for this time to reflect on your word and to realize that even you have had really, really, really tough moments and that we can always look to you no matter what. I thank you for this time. I pray blessing over everyone here.